Thank you, friend. Shabbat Shalom. How many of you have a fire burning within? A fire that stirs your heart, a fire that ignites your soul, a fire that stokes the imagination, a fire of desire. For love, for life, for knowledge, for spirit. This week's Parsha is Tzav, command. And it's primarily about sacrifices and the rites of ordination. But there was something early in this Parsha which grabbed my attention right away. In Leviticus 6:5 and 6:6 it says, "And the fire on the altar shall be kept burning. Fire always shall be kept burning on the altar. It shall not go out." If fire was always to be kept burning, my friends, then of course it won't go out. This was an interesting statement. It was redundant, and it was emphatic, and it pointed to being special, because it was one of the first examples of the unification of time and space. An eternal fire burning at the altar, time and space. There shall be an eternal flame, but it shall be at a specific place. This is a fire that is to prevail for all time to come. Like the fire of the burning bush and like the fire of the cloud, it cannot be quenched. And like the fire within us, which cannot be quenched, this eternal flame has been a part of our faith and ritual since the tabernacle and temple days, and is the centerpiece and miracle of the Hanukkah story, and can be seen today as the Ner Tamid, the eternal flame, which burns above the ark in every sanctuary. Friends, when this was written, it was for the establishment of the tabernacle, and it was never imagined that it would cease to exist. It is where the ark was kept, where the altar of sacrifice was kept, and existed before the temple, and then was probably housed in the first temple until its destruction. We were told last week that all sacrifices and other ceremonies must take place at the tabernacle's entrance and nowhere else, and that this was to be the law forever. And friends, there was only one exception. But what happened after the first temple was destroyed, and with it the tabernacle, the loss of the ark, and the other sacred items? Things changed. These rules, regulations, signs, and laws were done in the establishment of a system that would live well past the lives of the individuals involved. There's a lengthy description of the transformation of Aaron to priest, with the removal of his clothes and the donning of the special priestly garments, because the Torah is establishing zones of holiness, and you can only wear certain clothes in certain zones. Sacred garments can only be worn in sacred places. Things that weren't as important before take on new meaning. As the Beatles sang in Fixing a Hole, I'm taking the time for a number of things that weren't important yesterday. What's important to you, my friends? The messages in this parsha stretch across the sands of time and space. Leviticus begins with 7 straight chapters on sacrifice, and then it moves into one of only 2 narratives: the story of the consecration of Aaron and his sons to the priesthood of Israel. And friends, they were the first, and all the detail is provided. Earlier we were told of the procedures, and now we watch it unfold in Leviticus 8:2. It is a transfer of power of ritual and religious authority from Moses to Aaron. And now Moses is not the only person to enter the tent of meeting. The details of the ritual are impressive as Moses places the priestly articles on Aaron one by one, anointing the tabernacle, the contents, the altar, and finally Aaron. The inaugural sacrifice is done by Moses of a bull and 2 rams as he dabs the blood on the altar, the right ear, thumbs, and big toes of Aaron and his sons, and they are to stay there for 7 days. And on the 8th day another series of sacrifices takes place, but now it is no longer Moses who performs them, but Aaron and his sons. Friends, the sacrifice by Moses in Leviticus 8:15 is the last Moses ever does again. The first was for the tabernacle, the second was the ram of ordination. All future sacrificial slaughtering becomes the province of the priesthood. We now have the division take place between church and state. And some would say it's been a rocky division at best. This parsha, friends, tells the story of that fire of desire, the desire to become something more, something far greater. We all have that fire within us. Remember, this is a book of instruction, not stories. It constantly introduces by saying, this is the teaching. This book was in fact often referred to as the Torah Kohanim, or priestly instruction. Every few chapters we are given new sacrifices, followed by the term, this is the teaching. For sin offerings, for guilt offerings, for offense offerings, for every type of sacrifice and circumstance. And the sacrifice inevitably involves the term burnt offering. He ha'olah. But it points not to the word for burnt, but from the words for go up, because that's where the sacrifice is going, up to God. And the emphasis is not on the flame, but on the place of burning, the Holy of Holies. The constant use of the term Holy of Holies points to the sacrosanctity of the sacrifice and the continued reference to the contagion of holiness, which we saw before, but perhaps alludes to the new purpose of the object, meaning it can't be used in a profane way again. There is a constant back and forth reference between fire and blood, but here it is fire given preeminence. Blood is life, but fire is God's glory, associated with the Sinai Epiphany. The Parsha ends with Aaron and his sons told to wait those 7 days in the tent, just as we must now wait 7 days for the next Parsha, the one called Eighth, as if to say, this is the events of the 8th day, the Parsha that brings us the ordination and contains the only other narrative in this book, the tragic episode of Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu. Friends, in case you didn't know, I love Broadway. I love Broadway musicals, and probably my favorite Broadway musical writer is Stephen Sondheim. And I think of the words to some people from Gypsy. Some people can thrive and bloom, living life in the living room. Some people sit on their butts. Got the dream, yeah, but not the guts. This Parsha talks to us as a people with guts. We fight, we strive, we learn, we love. Our hearts are now the altar, and so the fire is kept burning by each of us internally. Friends, is your fire still burning? Has your fire ever gone out? If so, what put it out? How did you restart it? How do you inspire it in those around you? For everyone it's different. And even though it's different, there is a sameness, and that sameness is handed down in the law, and that command is coming up in the next month. We were told in Exodus 12:17 that we were to observe the festival of unleavened bread, to commemorate the day God brought us out of Egypt, and we are to observe it in each generation, an eternal law, the same words. An eternal law, like an eternal flame. This is an eternal flame of freedom. As Bob Marley sang in Redemption Song, emancipate yourselves from mental slavery, none but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, because none of them can stop the time. As Isaac Klein points out in his book, A Guide to Jewish Religious Practice, our liturgy emphasizes freedom from bondage. It's in the Decalogue, the Kiddush, and the Shema. And for Passover, we don't focus simply on the historical event. We read in the Haggadah that one must look upon himself as if he himself had come out of Egypt personally. So why do so many simply read from the book? Bring it to life, friends. The difference between a slave and a free man is in terms of their spirit, not just their status. For a slave can have a spirit filled with freedom, while a free man can have the spirit of a slave. And as Steve Winwood sang, if I gave you everything that I owned and asked for nothing in return, would you do the same for me as I would for you? Or take me for a ride and strip me of everything, including my pride? But spirit is something that no one destroys. Let that eternal flame of spirit in you be kept burning. Shabbat Shalom.